Got a special alert for churches out of the Denver metro area. We have a gang moving in called Tren De Aragua. I've written it extensively about this gang. We're just going to call them Tren or TDA because it's a little bit easier. I've written extensively about them over at the Drug Intelligence Bulletin. As you guys know, my full-time job was training police officers in counter drug operations around the United States and internationally. And I wrote about Trend at least a year and a half ago, knowing that they were going to become a problem. I've seen recently they have a big foothold in the Denver metro area, and that could be a problem for churches in that area. Now, we'll connect it all together so churches understand the threat they possibly could have. If you are in the metro Denver area and you are in charge of a church security team or part of a church security team, or just worried about church safety, or you're a concealed carrier and concerned about your own personal safety, this video is for you. If you know that Trend is coming to your area somewhere in the United States, I'll give you an example. I'm in Idaho. I have no doubt that they're already here. So this might be good for everybody. So let's break it down. Let's talk about what Trend is. Now, Tren De Aragua is one of Venezuela's most notorious criminal organizations with a reputation for violence, extortion, kidnapping, drug trafficking, and human smuggling. They were originally formed within the Venezuelan prison system, and the gang has since expanded its operations across Latin America and has recently been making inroads in the United States, including in cities like Denver. Honestly, Denver is the hub for them right now. The gang's move into Denver likely stems from its strategy to exploit the city's growing immigration population, particularly Venezuelans, as well as to establish control over illicit activities in the area. Now, look, to be clear, the reason why they are here is because we have made it easy for them to come here. We've opened our borders wide open. There is no stopping them. They're coming in unabated, and it's easy for these countries to send their criminals to us, get rid of their dirty laundry, and then now we have to deal with it. I've been dealing with this for my whole career. Now, a little bit about myself. I was a gang sergeant. I was in charge of gangs and narcotics together, and we worked mainly Hispanic gangs in the San Francisco Bay Area. But I do understand this gang because they are the same as every other. But this one's a little bit more violent, and we should be a little bit more concerned. All right, so how did Tren or TDA, how did their presence grow in Denver? Now, big one is immigration patterns. Now, Denver has seen an increase in Venezuelan immigrants, providing the gang with potential recruits and community to exploit through extortion and other criminal activities. There's also strategic expansion. As Trend seeks to expand its influence, establishing a foothold in US cities like Denver, it allows the gang to control drug distribution networks, engage in human trafficking, and establish connections with other criminal organizations. There's also some opportunistic targeting here. Now, Denver's diverse population and its role as a transportation hub make it an attractive target for gangs looking to expand their reach. So basically, it's in a great area that they can now bring people in. They have a support system within there, and they're in the center part of the United States. They can start sending their trash everywhere and start affecting other communities. All right. So let's talk about Trend in our churches. Why should churches be worried about Trend? All right. The biggest one is going to be targeting during funerals. So this gang is particularly violent. They are killing rivals. And as they start expanding and killing more people, they're going to want to wipe out entire gangs. Those gangs, families, are usually very religious and are Christian. And what they're going to do is they're going to hold a funeral. When they hold a gang funeral, all of the gang members come from all around to go support their friend that passed away. Every gang member knows that's the time you hit. You hit at that church at that time of the funeral because everybody's there and you don't have to go hunting around looking for the bad guy. Now, I was also a sniper team leader and a police sniper. And I can tell you on more than one occasion, I had to provide overwatch as a sniper at a gang funeral, knowing that the rivals were going to come to attack people out there. And part of it was a visible presence to let rivals know, like, you're going to, if you try to shoot this up, then we're going to have a gunfight right here, right now. The other thing is also just, doing surveillance and getting intelligence as well. But it is a very common tactic for churches to get attacked. So if you're going to hold a funeral in one of these areas, and it could be in a very nice area as well, you should look, if you have a young person that has passed away from violence, you should look at what caused that. And if they have gang ties, you should contact your local law enforcement agency and let them know, because they might not know that there is going to be a gang funeral at your church and you would like visible security there. They will provide extra people. As an example, me being the sergeant in charge of the gang team, I would send my crew out there and we would, it's called flying the flag. We would fly the flag through there, basically showing that cops are everywhere, so it's impossible to attack them without them suffering some likewise casualties. Other issue is going to be your regular services being targeted. How are your services going to be targeted? So gang members go to church, especially the Catholic faith. If you're a Catholic church, you're a little bit more at risk than a regular evangelical kind of a church. Reason being is that they go to church. I would drive by our Catholic church during mass, and I would see known gang members that I know walking in and out. In fact, if I was looking for a particular gang member, I would go to the church when mass started to watch them walk up so I can go contact them and chat with them, because I knew they were going to be there. Their rivals know that they're going to be at that church service as well, which means that if they want to go shoot them up, that's where they're going to do it. I have a great class over at christianwarriortraining.com. The class is called Identifying Threats. It's about identifying threats within your church. And one of the things that I talk about is iconology. Iconology is looking at different symbols and colors that people wear to determine where they lay within our societal norms. As an example, if you saw me right now, a clean-cut guy, older, wearing what appears to be a blue line shirt, you can figure out that I was probably a cop or I support the police in some way. If I walk up and I'm wearing a bright red shirt, 49ers, shirt with black pants and red shoelaces and my white Adidas, I'm probably a Norteño gang member. I'm probably not a fan of the 49ers. Well, I might be, but there's that commingling in there. And so go look at the iconology and go look. And yes, you are going to profile people. It's not a racial profile, it's a criminal profile. Go over there and look at it. Go watch what I have to say in the class, take it, have all your people at the church take it on the security team. It's all free. I do all of my training for free. If you want to support what I'm doing, a paid subscription of my newsletter over at christianwarriortraining.com goes a long way, but you can also get the newsletter for free as well. And we give out free information all the time. It just helps to support the ministry and what we're doing here. So we've talked about how they're going to target funerals, and we talked about how they're going to target your mass or your service. The other one that is least likely to happen, but has happened in the past, is extortion and intimidation. Now here, Tren De Aragua might attempt to extort churches, particularly those that are financially stable or serve large congregations as a means of financing their operations. Now, they're typically going to do this to churches that might focus on the Venezuelan population or something along those lines. They aren't going to go to like just you don't have to worry about your regular church in Boulder all of a sudden, having Tren show up, at least not yet. But if you are in a lower income neighborhood with Tren all around you, and you service the Venezuelan community, that is something that might come up and you are going to need some help. So given these risks that Tren poses to churches in the Denver metro area, there are some steps that I want you to do. The biggest one is you have to have a safety team, right? So that's medical and security personnel. No matter the size of your church, you have to have something to look out for these people. All right, so have some enhanced security measures. You want to implement security protocols during funerals and regular services, including if you can hire professional security personnel. But I think you'll be able to find enough volunteers within your church to provide a decent security presence, to have a decent security presence. You might want to increase police presence. If you are a church in an area that has Tren all around them, you may want to go ahead and ask for that extra police service. However, I'm going to throw some stuff in here first. We know that TDA members are reportedly taking over apartment complexes in Aurora, Colorado, using weapons and intimidation. Local officials like Aurora City Council member Danielle Jurinsky has been vocal about the threat, saying TDA has taken over at least 4 apartment complexes in Aurora. Let me tell you, when you have entire gangs taking over complexes, you have some major troubles, especially when it's a gang like this. Now, Aurora Mayor Mike Kaufman admitted that some apartment buildings have fallen to gangs, his words. But then you have Colorado Governor Jared Polis who call concerns over gang infiltration imagination and how it's caused frustration among community members. Polis is a politician that is afraid to speak the truth. And he is, so where I'm driving at is you are getting, let me put in the words of Councilwoman Jurenski about local leaders. She said they're playing politics with public safety to underscore the tension and urgency of the situation. Look, a large portion of the politicians in that area have brought Tren and other gangs there through their open border policies. They are not being truthful with the public. I train cops and talk to cops all the time, including cops in the Denver area. They have told me that this is a true concern and that right now Tren has an open hit on police officers in the Colorado area, meaning that they've told their people, shoot it out with the cops. That is a lawless society that you see in places like Somalia or Venezuela, you don't see here in the United States. So the problem is that we know it's a problem. The cops know it's a problem. As an example, the chief, I can't remember if it was Denver or Aurora, came out and said, well, we're creating a task force to look into the problem. Guaranteed the cops know exactly what's going on. Remember, I was a gang sergeant. We knew exactly who was working what and where. We knew it before anything ever came out in the press. We know everything that's going on, and that means the chief knows it as well. But he says, well, we're going to go look into it. Look, I don't think you're going to get the truth from local leaders. And this is why I'm putting out this alert to you, to churches in the Denver area. Do I think you need to freak out and lock your church down so that people can't come worship? Absolutely not. I want you to keep your church wide open. You're just gonna have to work a little bit harder at keeping the filth from coming in, right? I read something great in John about the light and the dark, right? So your job is to keep the darkness from coming within your church, okay? Keep your church open, let people come in and worship. You might want to do some community outreach, right? You want to engage with the local community, the people that already come to your church, and build relationships and gather intelligence on potential threats. Now, I have repeatedly talked about the need for church safety teams to have an intelligence officer on board. If I was in the Denver metro area, I would have my intelligence officer on my safety team look into these specific threats and start figuring out who in my church has gang affiliation and start pulling those people to the side and start talking to them about the threat that Tren may pose for them and for the church. You also want to encourage your congregation members to report any suspicious activity that they see. People loitering around the area, people that don't look familiar, that probably shouldn't be there, that aren't looking to come to Christ, but actually look like they're there to do harm. You want to train your staff and your volunteers. You want to provide training for church staff and volunteers on recognizing and responding to potential threats. The first place I would send them, christianwarriortraining.com. I'm getting nothing from it. It's all free. Head over there, go watch the video. You can have all your greeters watch that video on threat identification and how to look for a threat entering your church. It will do wonders for your people, right? You also might want to look at de-escalation techniques, but I'm here to tell you it takes two to de-escalate, and Tren is not going to de-escalate. They come from a violent world that is not the United States, and they don't work and live by United States rules. Okay, they are from a war-torn area that has a lot of civil strife. They come from prisons that are not like our prisons. You can try de-escalation, but you better be ready to protect yourselves and your church. I'm going to end this with, I'm giving you this information to make you aware so that you start paying attention and you start looking for the warning signs now. If you have a funeral of somebody that was murdered and has gang ties, you are going to need law enforcement to come be present during the funeral. If you have gang members in your congregation that are going to mass or to your service, you've got to have your safety team monitor those people and then pull them to the side and talk to them about how their gang affiliation might affect the church and ask them specifically the things that you need to look for. I would also prohibit gang attire from your church. It amazed me the number of gang members that would come to church. I would see them at mass and they are wearing gang attire and nobody told them that was unacceptable. Look, are they sinning? Oh my gosh, every day they are sinning. They are doing horrible, horrible things. It always shocked me. It's like, you go to church, do you listen to the priest? Do you listen to the pastor? Because it doesn't seem like you do. And you could not have a conversation with them about the Lord because they just didn't understand. It is a family event for them to go to church. But now they're in your church and there's people that want to kill them to take over their territory. Look, the chances of something happening at your church are pretty slim. but it's not zero. I'm not doing this to be an alarmist. I'm doing it to bring your attention so that you can pay more attention and pay more attention to these types of things. Our country has let us down with their border policy by allowing all these people to come in. We already have threats to worry about with ISIS telling their people to attack churches and synagogues. But now, if you're in the Denver area, you have to not only worry about that, but you have to worry about Trent as well. Our government is failing us significantly. Again, there's two big things that you can do when you leave here. Number one is pray unceasingly for the protection of our churches, for the protection of our people, and for discernment for our safety teams to identify threats and to be able to successfully stop anything from happening without any kind of violence. That would be my number one prayer. The number two thing that you can always do is to remember your ABCs.